Hello and welcome to the Female Founder Friday podcast with me, Lindsay White. I'm passionate about helping female entrepreneurs be great leaders, build high-performing teams, and create inspiring workplace cultures through innovative talent programs and practices. Because when people feel like they belong at work, they deliver their very best and businesses thrive. The Female Founder Friday podcast is all about connecting with the most incredible female entrepreneurs to talk about their journey to creating their own business, the mistakes they've made along the way, and how they view their own leadership. And I'm challenging all of my guests this season to take my leadership style quiz. And during each episode, we'll be digging into their leadership style and how it impacts the way they lead in their life and their business. And if you're interested in learning more about your leadership style and want some of my top tips to help you lead more effectively, you can take the quiz right now. Just check out the show notes or head over to 𝐻�voltageleadership.ca and click on the button at the top of the page that says Take the Quiz. Then you can share your results, connect with my guests, and join the conversation on Instagram by following me at 𝐻�voltleadership. All right, I have got Stephanie with me here today, and I'm super excited to have you on the show here. Thank you so much. I know this is going to be an interesting conversation today because we were just chatting before I hit the record button, and your journey, super present. Your journey is evolving as a female founder, so I'm excited to talk about that. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I imagine my journey is going to be a very unique one that I would guess 99.9% of the population has not heard.
Well, I love it. Tell us all about it.
Yeah. So what I do is search engine optimization, SEO for short.
Yeah.
But that means when you Google something, I help the company rank on the top page. And I've been doing this since I got out of college about 8 years ago. And I've always really loved it, and I've brought it with me to every single job I've been at, whether they had SEO and I was hired for that role, or they didn't have SEO and I was hired for a marketing role. I would still say, hey, I can do SEO. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I've had clients on the side too. I don't remember how it started out, but I started having people ask me, oh, you do SEO for your job. Could you help my friend do SEO? So it was very ad hoc here and there. And of course, all referral based.
Yeah.
So beginning of the pandemic, so let's fast forward, the beginning of the pandemic hits. And again, I still have these clients on the side, very, very little. Pandemic hits. I work in advertising. What do you think that means?
Yeah.
Advertisers, pandemic.
Yeah.
Probably no job, right?
Yeah.
So February of the first of the year, I was given my pink slip.
Yeah.
I got laid off, and of course I was a sobbing wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew in the back of my mind that couldn't sustain being in advertising in the pandemic.
Yeah.
But you know, when you get that notice,
yeah,
and then you talk, it's terrible. I loved my boss. She was like one of my best friends. I mean, we were both crying. It was not a pretty sight.
Right.
So of course I'm kind of floundering. What do I do? I got a referral to another job. Somebody at the job I got laid off from knew someone at another company, and they referred me there. So I literally started immediately. Like I had 2 weeks off and started. I started it, and I was like, I'm not feeling this. I'm not feeling this. It was kind of an offshoot of advertising what I was doing, and I saw the writing on the wall again. But as anyone that's been laid off, I can imagine you're very in panic mode.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I got to do it. I got to do it now. So I took a job I didn't even really research. Didn't have a good interview in the sense that I got a bad feeling about the boss, and I didn't listen to my intuition because, again, I'm in panic mode, right? What am I going to do? So this was this was the following January. I stayed for 2 months because I had the most terrible boss.
Yeah.
And he would yell at me during our one-on-ones.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah. And I was trying to, I'm a strong female. I'm going to, fight back. I'm going to not let him win. Right. But I think the lesson as I step back now is you leaving is you winning. So I had told my husband, he's just yelling at me during my one-on-ones and like full out yelling. And of course, I'm calm and cool on the outside. On the inside, I'm seething.
Oh my God.
He was randomly home during the very last one-on-one I had with my boss. And I don't know, he's in a room that's 2 rooms away from where I'm taking the call.
Yeah.
And he can hear him. Because he thought maybe I was being dramatic. You know, Meg
Right.
would be like, oh, you're being dramatic. And he could hear it. And I told him I wanted to quit. And he came out after that and he goes, you quit now. I go, yep, I quit. I literally called HR. Right after that, I said, I'm putting in my notice. I quit. And I called my friend. I said, I just quit. She goes, what do you want to do? You do SEO on the side. You love it. Start your own business. I said, you're right. Give me a week.
Yeah.
I gave myself a week. I scraped together a website. By no means am I a web designer, but you got to remember everything was oral based before. So you need a website. People are just like, hey, here's Stephanie. But now I need a storefront. So then I opened my website and I started marketing myself. And then back to the company I got laid off from, that boss had said, if I can bring you back, I will. And of course, she was like one of my best friends. Of course I wanted to go back.
Yeah.
So guess what? So now 2021. So in October 2021, she's like, Stephanie, I'm going to bring you back. And I was like, great, but I'm still doing my SEO business full time. So I'm going to work a full-time job and I'm doing my SEO business full time. So I'm not sleeping at all. I am walking on my treadmill, taking business calls.
Oh my gosh.
I am multitasking like I can. No sleep, nothing. Literally, I was totally haggard. I saw the writing on the wall again. Why did I go back to advertising? I jumped back in because, again, while I worked for myself, I didn't have the benefits. I didn't have that steady every 2-week paycheck.
Yes.
So, of course, while I'm actually processing this now, I think I was still in survival mode again. I
sure.
didn't give myself enough.
Yeah.
Of course, she hired me right back. I jumped back on. We're still in the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And starting to see the writing on the wall. I'm seeing it. And so this last November, I made a decision. I was quitting no matter what in February of 2023. So I put together a plan, what I needed my finances to look like, my life to look like, really everything. I saged my apartment.
Love it.
I got myself in this mindset that no matter what comes, January 31st is my very last day there. No matter what. Even if I have written out this plan and something's not exactly accurate on it, quitting. You got to do it. Because one of the best advices I got from one of my, she's a mentor to me. She said, when is the day you're going to make that jump, Stephanie?
Yeah.
And I was, well, when is that day? Well, when I have X, Y, and Z. Well, yes, I did lay out X, Y, and Z. I said November, but if X isn't there, I'm still going to make the jump. In February. Yeah. So here's what 99.9% of the population might not have heard about. I got laid off in December from the same job twice.
Oh my goodness.
But I knew it. Again, I saw the writing on the wall. I was going to quit.
Yeah.
So they just expedited it.
Yeah.
So what I can say to female founders is I am not like the most confident woman in the world and couldn't go out and lift a rock. But I will say I'm confident enough that even if I'm missing one of those check boxes, I am okay as of February to quit.
Yeah.
Again, that expedited it, but I am totally okay. So the first time around, I was sobbing, crying, just totally a wreck. Guess what this time? Of course it's a blow. I was fine.
Yeah.
I think my call was 30 seconds.
I love it.
The company did a 10% layoff, and I was one of them in 30 seconds. I walked in, told my husband I got laid off. He goes, you did? I go, I did. Are you ready?
Yeah.
My business is officially full time.
Love it.
For real.
For real.
For real.
I love
so
that.
I had already laid out what I wanted to look like. I want to do trainings. I want to be a professor at my university part-time. I want to still do SEO implementation. I had it all laid out. So now I can execute on it. And I think people think they have a misconception. Just because you work from home, starting a business, you're not working. I get this from my sister-in-law. She thinks you're not actually working. And I want to tell you, I'm actually working almost as much because this is a new business I have to build.
Yeah.
So That's a misconception.
Oh,
I want
100%.
I get it a lot. My sister-in-law still on Christmas thinks that I'm a stay-at-home wife. Like, she does not get that I work.
Yeah.
So
I've had that for years. Like I've had a home-based office for over a decade. The last big organization I worked for had gone to a results-only work environment. We all moved our offices home, and people were that really was uncommon outside of the tech industry at the time. And even my kids, I'd get called, can you bring my lunch to school? No, I have a meeting. Well, what do you mean you're at home? Yeah, I'm still working.
Yep.
You might have more flexibility, especially when you own your own business. You can have, the ability to plan your calendar. But the truth is, I work just as hard or harder in my own business than I ever did in my corporate environment. Because I'm so much more, in fact, I have to be very careful in managing my energy. So I think you're right. It's such a myth that just because you don't go to an office, you're not working hard. Like, to me, that's total bullshit. Presence does not equal value added in any organization, whether you're working for yourself or you're working for a big multinational. Being in an office does not mean you're doing any work at all.
Absolutely. My mother-in-law thinks I'm way more available to her now than I ever have been, and nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Because I'm still working.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's still office hours, like 8:30 to 4:30. I'm doing my thing. Don't bug me.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to rewind like 2 steps because I want to say to you, first of all, you mentioned intuition. And I think that's really important as female founders, that we pay attention. We pay attention to what our intuition, what our gut is telling us. And even though it took you some time, I am so, like, congratulations. I am so glad to hear that you told that absolutely terrible, toxic boss, I don't tolerate this behavior. No amount of money is worth that abuse.
It was amazing. Do not be afraid to quit.
No.
It was great.
If you are listening to this episode and you are being mistreated, know that it is, first of all, 110% not your fault. That if you are being yelled at by a boss, if you are being gaslit by a boss, if you are being denigrated and talked down to by a boss, it is not about you and it is not about your work. It is 100% about them, and you don't have to tolerate that. Give your 2 weeks notice and get the hell out of there.
Yep, I did it, so you can
do it. Good for you. 100%. I did it too. I quit in the middle of a meeting with my toxic boss. It was one of the most freeing things I've ever done. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, this is all very recent, this development in your life. And I love the way that you have just embraced, the universe is clearly conspiring for you. And I love the way you've embraced it. That is just ridiculously amazing.
Because the first time I got laid off from this job, and then I jumped to that other job really quickly. The universe gave me a terrible boss, I think, because it's telling me, no, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
I went back to this other job again thinking, oh, it's wonderful. I'm back with one of my good friends who's my boss. And then it just vomited me out again. Yeah. It's like pushing me. Yeah. And I hear you. And I'm not going back. To work for a corporate place, again, makes me feel ill. Yeah. I don't have the passion like you mentioned. My passion is what I'm doing. While I may put in 110% to another company, my mind isn't all there. Yeah. With my business, I do put in 110% and my mind is 100% there. Yeah, I love it. Because while I'm doing the other job, I'm also thinking, what do I got to do for my SEO? Who do I have to follow up with, right? Because I'm typing mindlessly and then thinking about other things.
So why not just go all in? Like, why not just go all in? So I love that. I love that the universe just gave you the shove. Just gave you the shove that you needed. And now you can have your heart and your soul and your brain all lined up in one place.
Yes, absolutely.
Love it.
Absolutely.
That is so amazing. So Stephanie's already taken my leadership style quiz, and we're going to talk about what her leadership style is next and what that means, because I think there's some interesting implications for her now, especially moving full-time, wholeheartedly into her own SEO business. But if you haven't taken my leadership style quiz yet, you want to do that. There's a link in the show notes. You can also go to highvoltagecoaching.ca. There's a button at the top of the page that says take the quiz. It only takes a couple minutes. You'll find out what your leadership style is. It'll give you some great insights. I've also got some really great leadership tips for you that will help you be a better leader right now. So, Stephanie, tell us, what is your leadership style?
I am the delegating one.
I love it. Why is that important for you?
So I think one thing, I am never going to have employees. It will always be me. And so I think that's what actually brings the delegating in. I'm very good at telling, I need to pull in a social media manager to help this client. That's not me. I need to pull in a web developer to help this client. So I'm very good at pulling all the pieces together to make a whole.
Yes.
And like even I mentioned with my getting ready a month before I actually got the 𝐭𝐤𝐢𝐬, I was pulling everything, all my resources together to get ready with it. So
I love it. I love that you, and I think that this is something that I hear a lot from my clients. I also hear a lot on this show, is that it's actually really hard sometimes to recognize when is the right moment to be that delegator. What's the key? What's the signal for you that it's the right time to delegate? Is there something that tips you off?
I think when everything is, I know what the pathway is. And things around me are very uneven. And again, it's like more my intuition. For instance, I'll go back to the job. Like I felt I knew my path, but everything around me was uneven and very shaky. I was feeling icky. So I had to define that and bring that in. What do I need to make that final decision? What a keen observation. I really appreciate you offering that. Like getting really centered on what do I need? Clearly, you articulate it. What am I really good at? What am I really passionate about? And to some degree, like staying in that lane, staying on that path, and not trying to be a web designer, not trying to be a social media man, like not, because I think we have the tendency in our own businesses to think or believe in some way that we have to be all of the things. That's just not true. And you brought up a point. So when I speak to new clients, they say, so you can do everything in marketing. And I say, I can. However, I do one thing so I can be excellent at that.
Love it.
So do you want the one thing that's excellent, or do you want everything that you can't necessarily be excellent at everything? So that being said, if somebody begs me to do like paid search for them, those go hand in hand, SEO and that. So I will everything else off the table. So female founders, know this, you don't have to do everything. Even though you're like, I need the money, I need this, don't, because you're going to get off path. You're going to get off path. I want to solely focus on SEO. This is my thought leadership. This is what I do. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, that's what I do.
But I love that you have, like, what would I call it? Like, a sphere, a group, a collection of other knowledgeable people to refer to that you can partner with. Right? Because you're right, like SEO, and then you need a great website because that's part of what the SEO is doing. Like, what are the other? So, like, I think that that's so cool that you've created like this atmosphere, and you can support, but like drawing in other experts to do that. That's really neat.
I do want to step back on that note though too. Networking is one of my superhuman skills. I would say. So you did mention like I can pull in from every sector that I can honestly think of, but I have cultivated these relationships for years and years and years. So I want to give a piece of advice too. Don't ever burn a bridge. And I know that may sound silly, but I had a partial client that they seemed kind of iffy about it, and I was like, I'm going to throw them out the window. I got an email from them over a year later last week that they're ready to pull the trigger. So don't ever write someone off, be mean. You just never know. Even though we live in a big world, I'm using quotes, it's actually pretty small when it comes to what you do. Like my world is very small. So if you do specialize in one thing, it's actually very small.
Yeah,
And you
totally.
never know who knows, who knows, who knows.
I think that that's a really valuable piece of advice. And I think about the way that I work with clients. So I have like a velvet rope policy. There is a certain group of women that I love to work with. And not only do I love to work with them, they're the ones that get the best results working with me. Coaching from the coaching that I do, helping them develop as a really powerful leader, and then working with them and their team to create a really great workplace culture. And there's some pretty specific criteria of who I work with. That doesn't mean that I can't work with the other people. It means that we're not going to have the best results and I'm not going to have the most passion for the work. But I love to be able to refer those people to others who I think they actually will fit with better. I think they'll get better results with. Or they're not ready for the coaching. Their business isn't developed enough to really need the workplace, culture and organizational design that I offer. Right. So I love to be able to refer those people to other places. So you're right. You don't want to burn that bridge. You want to be able to offer them forward, and having a great network and some great experts that you really trust is a great way to do that. I love that. That makes a lot of sense.
So key. I am a part of so many different female groups,
Yeah.
whether it's local virtual, local in person, national. That's also key.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
So,
I think you're right. Developing a great network is so very important. And actually, I think about some of the great relationships that I made through COVID. Women
yeah.
that I met online, whether it was LinkedIn or Instagram or networking groups that I joined on purpose, I created some really great relationships that I value very, very deeply. So that is fantastic. What fantastic information. I want to ask you about, where have you made mistakes or missteps? Where have you screwed it up? And what was the lesson?
Oh, I'll tell you that I think a lot of females screw this up, as I've spoken.
Yeah.
Giving away too much free stuff.
Sure.
Do you know how much free I have worked for?
Yeah.
I have worked for so much free, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
And while you may think it's good to initially do that, I'm gonna tell you, don't work for free, because those people are never gonna pull the trigger. Yeah. I have spent countless hours doing free stuff, and they took my work and just ran with it. Yeah. So somebody's not willing to pay for what I do initially is an SEO audit. So that's what I was doing for free, audits. If you're not going to pay me for my audit, you're definitely not serious enough. Yeah. To want to pull the trigger with me. But on that note too, what I struggle with is charging people. Yeah. I put myself way undervalued. Yeah. What I am. Yeah. I really am giving them I'm giving myself $10 an hour at what I'm charging them. Yeah. So even to this day, as I'm speaking it, it's so hard to put out that invoice with that amount on there. Totally. That you really believe is real. So don't do free work unless it's absolutely you think so. And what are you worth? Yeah. That is the number you put on that proposal, that invoice, whatever. Yes. And if people bat an eye at it, you don't want them. Yeah. I absolutely love that, because I think you're right on both points. I think we do end up doing a lot of free work that we don't get a lot out of. And so really being very thoughtful about who and when you give your time away to. If it's a worthwhile charity, let's be clear, I get asked, several times a year, will I donate to a silent auction? And I will give away hours of free coaching time because it's a worthwhile charity. Mm-hmm. Give away that time if you feel that that is adding value to the world, right? Don't give your time away to for-profit organizations. They make money. They know everybody's got to make money. And I think your second point is also very valid around, it's not just what is your time worth. What is your skill worth? What's your years of experience worth? What's your education worth? Right? It's not just 15 or $20 an hour.
It's the 6 years that I spent in university. It's the 15 years that I spent. It's the 2 university degree I have. It's the 4 certifications that I have. What's all that stuff worth?
Yeah, exactly.
Add it all up.
Helps anyone. I don't like to work in hourly. I work in
Yeah.
blocks. Like it's X amount for my audit. I X amount on a retainer, right?
Yep.
So that's easiest for me
Yep.
to do. That's an advice if you don't want to work hourly. I like to do it that way. So people,
Yeah.
and right, some weeks you'll work way more than that retainer, and some weeks you'll work less than that, right? So, but it all balances out.
I think the further you can get away from an hourly rate, the better off you are. Having said that, for many, that's how you start off, is working hourly. But the faster that you can group your time and your effort together to make packages, I think it also makes sense to do some research.
Yep.
What does your market look like? Right?
Yep.
Local, state. For us here in Canada, it's province, region. Like, do some research so that you understand what's the market rate and where do you need to live, right?
Right.
I think that's really important to understand. So what absolutely fantastic advice. That is brilliant, because I think so many of us undervalue what we have to offer the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm the first to admit I do, 100%.
You know what? I still do. I just did a big proposal. I just sent it off. The largest that I've ever done. Could be incredibly lucrative.
Ooh,
And
good
like
vibes.
I pressed the send button and I was like, holy shit. Oh my God. I
Yep.
guess we'll see how that goes. I don't know.
But I look at it like if I did a huge, massive proposal and they really liked me, but they couldn't afford it, we'd have a conversation.
Exactly.
Right? So I look at it 3 ways. They say yes, no hesitation. 1, they want to work with it, and I'm willing to work with them.
Yeah.
2, they balk at it, and the minute they balk at it and are not willing to budge, I'm not willing to work with you. I've been doing this 8 years.
They don't want you bad enough. They really don't want what you have bad enough if they're just gonna bitch about it, right?
You don't want them because they're going to be a bitch client anyways,
Yeah.
right? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They're just nickel and dime everything. So
No, it's true.
I've done it. I've been through it. Take my advice.
I think
don't do it.
I think that's absolutely beautiful advice, and I love the way you broke that out. Like the client that really wants to work with you and sees the value in that proposal, and make sure that when you're writing a proposal, you are really clear about the value, because I think that's something we also miss. But if they see the value and they say yes, bingo. If they come back and say, hey, we want to talk about this or this or this, or this is I had a client that was like, this is a little bit more than what I budgeted. And I was like, okay, let's talk about that. Yeah. That I can work with. Yep. And if they come back and they're like, oh, this is way too much, we just can't do it, kiss them goodbye. They're not the right client for you. Mm-hmm. I love the way you articulated that. Stephanie, I think we could probably go on for hours, but it's only one podcast.
Everything you can think work-wise has happened to me, whether it's actually been in corporate for myself, you name it, I've done it. I've walked out of interviews before. I've stopped them and walked out because they've been so fucking terrible.
I love it.
Seriously.
I love it.
You name it, I've done it.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing all of that so boldly with me and with everyone that's listening. I know there's a woman out there who's going to listen to this and really, really appreciate your experience and just some of the great lessons you've offered today. Thanks so much for being a part of the show.
Yeah, thank you. This was really fun.
Oh, it was absolutely my pleasure. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. I sure hope you enjoyed listening as much as I did hosting this conversation. And if you did enjoy today's episode, would you do me a favor? Would you give the episode a 5-star review and share it with all of your friends? I would really appreciate that. I've got a goal to impact 1,000 female founders, and with your help, we can really amplify this message. Thanks again for being a part of the show, and don't forget to connect with me and all of my guests on Instagram at High Volt Leadership. We'll see you next Friday.